About her experiences with locked-in syndrome. She'll take questions at the end, so if you can pay attention please for the next 40 minutes or so, and then we can ask Kate questions at the end. So over to Kate.
Thank you. Well, I've just been listening to part of your AGM, and it was really interesting actually, because you were talking about a lot of the runs that as a road runner and a fell runner I used to do. I mean, I did used to run a lot. I was up to 70 miles a week fell running, which was pretty hard going. But before that, I was well, I'll let you know. This speech of mine is about my whole approach to life. Having had what I've had, but people say you only live once. Well, it's actually rubbish. You live every day. It's about you only actually die once. So it's about making the most of life. So that's what it's about. Judge it at the end, if you want. So, before 7th February 2010, I was a runner. I used to do activities with my daughter. This picture here was me running a 10k race. I've also done the person forward, and my claim to fame was that I came third as a vet, female vet. The same year I did 1:38 for the Sheffield Half Marathon. So I used to love my running. It was a fairly drastic way to get away from the family, but no, it was great. I used to call myself Forrest Gump. So I used to do a lot of road racing, and then I converted to fell running because I was trying to protect my ankles and my hips because I had chicken legs, and then they got worse actually. So anyway, in actual fact, the day before, the 6th of February 2010, I was 39. I'd actually just done a Chatsworth run with the Saturday Running Girls. We weren't part of a group. Probably would have been nice to join one. But we used to go and do any run, whether it's Strines, Whitehead and Frogger, and well, all over the place really, to Hathersage. But we'd always stop off for a coffee afterwards. So anyway, that's what we were doing the day before, but I was running with a headache, which I'd had for 2 weeks, and too busy, I ignored it. Got 3 young kids, husband, busy life, working, had my own company, and I ignored it to my peril really, because the very next day I ended up in ICU with well, actually I was in a coma to shut down my brain, because actually what had happened in my lounge floor just down the road here, I came downstairs because my boys were fighting in the bath, in the backside, and I came down to bark at them, and came downstairs. My husband offered me a cup of tea, and I had these strange sensations in my brain, where I had lots of tingling, no pain as such, but really weird noise. And I remember saying to my husband, I thought I was saying, what's happening to me? He was in the kitchen making me my favourite Earl Grey tea, and what actually came out was gobbledygook, totally. And then he came, because I couldn't understand why he came rushing in, throwing the tea everywhere, just to see me collapse off the sofa, stiff, and land in a heap on the floor. And I think Mark was obviously very shocked at the time, but I think he thought I was having a fit. I was in and out of consciousness. The kids were upstairs, they were obviously very scared. And at one point I came round to hear the paramedics saying to my husband, who'd asked him what's happened to her, she had a fit, and he said, I'm sorry, sir, it's far more serious than that. And I sort of blacked out. I don't remember in the journey to the Northern General. I remember waking up with severe pains on and off in the wheels in the trolley with cramps, but then nothing. Apparently my mum said I was screaming not to put me in a coma, but I don't remember any of that, to be honest. I just had 3 days of nothingness, no ethereal dreams, no nothing. My life just stopped for 3 days. And when I woke up to discover a huge tube in my mouth, cannulas all over the place, the life support, which I didn't know was a life support, was a bleeping next to me, and a nurse at the bottom of my bed because I had 24-hour nursing. And as you can imagine, one of the first thoughts I had was, where the hell am I? The second thought was, where the hell isn't my kids? It was like 10 to 3, and I thought, as mums do, school pickup. So what's going on? And then I was thinking, where's Mark? And I was scared, because I could see there was 4 days in that ward I was in. It was obviously a hospital. I was obviously on something that was helping me breathe. I felt scared, very scared. I was sleeping a lot in ICU because there was I was very bored. Oh, sorry. I was very bored. I was on serious drugs, hallucinogenic drugs. I mean, I had the most. I'll come on to that later, but because of the cocktail of drugs I was taking, I was very tired, and because I had nothing to do, I ended up sleeping all day. And then at night, when lots of people on the ward became very aggressive and agitated, I was there to listen to it all. And 3 weeks into this hell, they originally thought I was cognitively not all there. I was in a persistent vegetative state. The reason they realised after 2 weeks I wasn't, and this is my family and my friends, was because if my head was positioned to the door, I could see people coming in. And one day I saw my friends coming in, my best friend Alison, who's let me that actually, lived down the road. She came in and I cried tears, silent tears, because I couldn't make any noise, but there were tears, and I was able to do that. And they knew straight away that I knew what was going on because I was so emotional to see a friend. So I managed to convince the nursing staff, who were, I'm sure, convinced that we were just they were just desperate family wanting the best for their surviving loved one. But at the same time, they discovered I was cognitively all there. My husband, who thought for a couple of weeks that I wasn't particularly, because I was often tired and not with it and drugged up and everything else, he had very mixed feelings. First of all, he thought, this is amazing, she's still Kate. And then he thought, totally deflated, as he thought, Jesus, she's going to know everything that's happening to her. And I did. So it was a very double-edged sword. Anyway, I couldn't carry on with the tube in my mouth after 3 weeks because I had. I'm sorry, be rude. I do. You know this. I was lightly. I had no gag reflex, which meant that I became tube tolerant, which was actually going to be damaging me. If I ever was to talk ever again, that was only going to damage me. So they had to fit me with a tracheotomy. My mum thought this was something that you have permanently, and she fought Mark tooth and nail for that, because she thought, once I've got it in, that's it, I'll always have it in. And I must admit, I was asked my approval for the operation, and at that point I was blinking, once for no, twice for yes, and I would have blinked anything just to get that damn thing out of my mouth, because trying to sleep with that in your mouth all day, every day, all night, was not pleasant. So whilst that looks gruesome, and it was, because you had to have it hoovered out all the time and everything else, it was far more preferable to that. I've got 3 kids, we've got 3 kids. The youngest one here is Woody, and he was only 6 at the time. And what was Woody and Harvey in India, and what was really distressing for me, as any of you are parents, I'm sure, is as a mum you want to just throw your arms around the kids and give them a big hug, who were very distressed because the mouth was smiling and their eyes were petrified. It was bloody obvious, and all I wanted to do was say, look, it's going to be fine. I didn't know it was going to be fine, but they came in and they put toner on cotton wool, and they'd massage my hands, and they'd try and freshen me up, and they'd come in and they'd read stories, and the whole role was reversed. You know, they became the parents. I couldn't do anything. It was this one here. My head just happened to be turned to that position. It wasn't able to be turned. I couldn't turn it myself. That was really distressing because the separation anxiety I had with my kids was phenomenal. initially my friends were very good. They always came in 2s and 3s. They could involve me in conversation, but not come on their own, which would have been an hour damn hard work, to be honest. So they involved me, and initially they'd come for weeks, and they'd come and tell me everything my kids were doing. You know, how they were at school, and they were going to the piano, and they were doing this, and they were doing that, and that party. And eventually I learned how to glaze over, because I wasn't being selfish, but the separation anxiety I had being in this Northern General, away from the kids who I could see were distressed beyond belief, was horrendous. I couldn't listen to what they were saying. I just wanted to know they were safe, they were fine, and that's it. I alluded to earlier. Being in ICU was an incredibly boring situation. I had a TV on, a retractable arm, and because the nurses were too busy saving my life, they never ever put it on. Even when my loved ones went through the TV guide circling all the food programmes I wanted to watch, because you eat with your eyes, don't you? They never turned them on. And I did get to see Katie Price, which Mark was really horrified about. But I blinked and I wanted to see that on Channel 5. What was it with you? But it was never turned on. So all I had all day, every day and all night, was a clock on the wall. I suffered the worst insomnia there was until 3 weeks before anyone actually gave me sleeping pills. And I'll have to tell you an interesting story on that. That only came about because the day that my friends decided that I could understand, they smuggled in their own homemade letterboard, and they said 1 blink for no, 2 blinks for yes. And Jackie said to me, right, we're going to start at A and go all the way down, and we're going to try and work out what you want, rather than try and talk at you. She went from A, I went once, all the way to S, where I blinked twice, so it was very, very slow. And this process, initially, it took me 10 minutes to get to S, because my blinks were not deliberate. They were just, if you blink and you miss it kind of thing, especially if you're trying to write while you're looking at the eyes. So I blinked twice for yes, for sleep, for S. Anyway, I went back to A, went all the way to L, blinked twice, and then E, and she guessed that first E, sleep, and I blinked twice. And then she said, can't sleep. I blinked twice. I remember the words like it was yesterday. And then she said, at night, and I blinked twice. And that was the first time I was given any insomnia sleeping pills, because it was horrendous, lonely experience, seeing the nurses drinking their tea or coffee in the empty bay, reading the magazine. I was nil by mouth for 7 months, and it was just cruel. So I would say a TV switched on and off is an absolute necessity, as is a docking station, so you don't have to have earphones on, which just end up playing back-to-back music. And if your mum, my mum, who thought she was being helpful at the time, and she comes with her own iPod with country and western music, then, it's not a great idea. So a docking station, a TV, and actually something I've recommended since my experience is a nominated patient advocate, someone who's trained in the eventuality that someone like me comes in and is fearful, anxious, scared, frightened, wants to die, all those issues, depressed, that they can at least try and communicate with them, or try and work a way out, however basic it is, whatever they can do, or at least talk to them and try and allay their fears, because it's so lonely. So I think it's a basic human right. The other thing that happened was I told her I had a tracheotomy. What you don't know is probably that those tracheotomies regularly, mine used to 7 times a week pop off. Now I couldn't breathe for myself. When that popped off in the middle of the night with then slightly dim lights, and you're just hoping that you can't tell the nurse this has happened, come sort me out, and you're seeing this thing, it's not whizzing around like that, it's an exaggeration, but it's away from you and you're not breathing. The 10 seconds or 20 seconds it takes for them to the nurse to realise that's happened and then reattach it, I've gone through hell and back thinking, I'm just going to die. Why aren't those tied on permanently? I have no idea. But they were just an unnecessary stress. They were so stressful. The other thing I had, which may have been to do with my running, I don't know, but I suffered right from the outset with the most severe leg cramps. Now this picture here is me in the bed, and the best way for me to depict it was a tension weight. And the 4 hours was, I was turned more than that in ICU, but not in Osborne. Was Mark not knowing what's wrong with me because I can't tell him. I've got leg cramps, I can't relieve it, I can't alleviate it or anything. And the 4 hours on the clock watch, so that's why he's blind. And the 4 hours is to indicate how often I was turned, especially in ICU, in Osborne. Not enough. I mean, it's just not enough. I alluded to the hallucinations. Interestingly, just as I had the stroke, for my book group, I was reading the book called The Guernsey, Potato Peel Pie. It's a rubbish book anyway. But in that book, I was the main character, and I was in a cafe in my bed, in my hospital bed in a cafe, watching nurses drink latte, and then I travelled to Guernsey. I mean, I was all over the place. The other thing I used to dream about as the nurses were drinking their coffee, their tea, was, you know, the desert thing where you just thinking, I want some, give it me. But I had the issues of silent aspiration, which basically more than 30 mils of fluid on my lungs would have killed me. But the caramel chocolate and my beloved Earl Grey tea, I used to drink that all the time. Roast dinner. I mean, I used to hallucinate about all sorts. This is funny. I'm sorry you're getting a hard time, but there we are. I've got my mic. When they realised I could blink to things, once for no, twice for yes, they introduced a letterboard. Now, that was a basic book, A to Z, and it didn't have an end of word box or the end of sentence box on it, it just was plain. So I'm trying to spell out, remember I get the leg cramp. Mark gets, quite rightly, L-E-G, and I'm thinking, end of word! And he's going, L-E-G-C. You've lost your marbles. I have no way of telling him I've got to the end of a damn word. And so, at one point he said, you know, you have lost your marbles, you've had a stroke, you're not thinking clearly. And I'm thinking, That's when I learnt to swear with my eyes. That's an absolute must. They have it in Osborne, but not in ICU, and it's so important. As you'd expect, everything was done for me. A nurse looking at my charts, one nurse giving me a wash, one nurse checking I've got enough drugs in, another nurse, I don't know what she was doing. But it was the most undignified existence you could imagine. I hated it. I mean, you know, your bed was the lounge, the bathroom, everything, the kitchen where you just observe things happening, you know, the people drinking. It was just horrendous. And I used to just close my eyes and think it wasn't happening to me. Then, week 8 ICU, I got this thumb flicker, and it flickered. Just this thumb, nothing else. No neck, no head. 0.5 millimetre. That was progress. That was real progress. And of course, Mark is getting very excited about that, but it was only 0.5 millimetre, and there was nothing functional I could do with that. So, you know, I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought, so what? I can't do anything. So, but that was when that happened, week 8. Then I'm fast forwarding a bit now. I ended up going to the rehab unit at Osborne. There, my family did a sponsored bike ride to save up for the Grid 2 communication system down here. As you can see, I'm still using the colour-coded communication board there. Interestingly, I just had my trachea out. That's why it looks very red, the trachea mark. And I was in this wheelchair with a headrest, and I was obviously being pushed around, arms on pillars, and I was able just to activate that Grid 2 with just this thumb. That was all I had to do. Interestingly, this speech communication system was actually, in my mind, just a temporary fix. Little did I know, this bike ride was actually to permanently get me one of these things. you know, over my dead body. I'm not going to have that. I used it for about 2 weeks. They sent the order back. They didn't use it anymore. They actually ordered it and sent it back before it came. But, you know, up here is a picture of me looking very grey. I have obviously got grey hair. When my kids are visiting me one day in the outside area, I think it's a car park now at Osborne, but it was a very nice area to have, it was an outside area. Then, the most defining moment, apart from my 6-week review, which was far too soon, defining moment on many, many levels, which turned me around from being very passive, very given up, very self-pitying, to come on man, I'm gonna fight this. I didn't know if it was gonna work, but I had a moment, a few things happened back to back, and all of a sudden I came out fighting. And one of the things I used to do at that moment was try and bring this side back to life. This side had nothing for 3 or 4 months actually. And I thought, in my wisdom, being very unmedically trained, that I know if I stare hard enough with my big left toe, and I just think, move, 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 then eventually it'll move. This went on for weeks and weeks and weeks on my own. And it was a bit like being at the fun fair, you know, the test of strength game, and you're trying to hit the buzzer at the top. And every day it was getting a bit higher, a bit higher. That's how I visualised it. And then eventually, after weeks of doing it, I got the 1mm flicker. And I was euphoric. I mean, forget the thumb flicker, that was nothing. This was major, because I'd actually made this happen, I believe. What I also thought when that happened was, fantastic, I've made my left toe flicker. If I can do that, that being the farthest place from my whole mind, game on for the rest of my body. That's what I thought. And everything came back. It slowly, but it did. But that's how I thought, and I've since realised, having read loads of books like Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changed Itself, that this whole notion of neuroplasticity, the brain remapping, is definitely real, and it definitely happened for me, and I made it happen. And I'm so glad I did. I do also think, though, at the same time I was trying to do this, I was trying to regain my swallow, which I'd had 2 failed video fluoroscopies, which tests whether you can swallow without aspirating. And I let that go while I was focusing on this, and I don't believe you can do more than one thing at once. It's like focus on one part of your body and just do that for a period of time. So that's what I did, and that just was natural for me in this fight mode. I was definitely in fight mode. I was always an impatient, obsessive bugger before, and this made it worse, to be fair. Now, what you don't know is, for my 40s I was 39, in the June I was 40, and actually I was supposed to be climbing Kilimanjaro. And this picture here was like my own Kilimanjaro, because I can't believe I did this. Well, I can, I'm naughty. But my stepdad brought me home for a home visit one day, and I persuaded him to try and take me upstairs. Now, he took me upstairs in a totally wrong way, would contravene any health and safety thing, and he said, I'll do it on the basis you never tell anybody, especially in hospital. And I sort of promised him, but I've got a big mouth. And we're at the nurse's station computer one night, laughing, and my neurologist, who was stepping in for Emma Dove, who's, I don't mind her knowing, she did a fantastic job. But when she had her first baby, the stand-in neurologist, was neurophysio, was there. And I'd managed to get a few words at this point, and he said, and I said to him, what would you say if I told you I'd been upstairs? And he'd say, I'd say you're lying. And I just laughed. Now that's my emotional ability, I do have that. But I laugh and I cry a lot, but I did laugh. And he went, you haven't. Anyway, that pushed their hand, because from the next day, they started me on the steps at the rehab centre. Up until then, it was like we're having our kitchen modified to accommodate a bathroom. They're having a bedroom downstairs. And I'm like, I've just had my kitchen done for 3 months. It's the most amazing kitchen. Over my dead body, get me up those stairs. So that was that. So it was like a Kilimanjaro, really. Now, Now, in terms of my routine, it was 3 hours a day of intensive therapy. My speech and language, which was obviously non-existent, they used to do dry, chilled teaspoons to try and promote my swallow. And then it became 10 teaspoons of ice water after time. And then I used to do oral motor exercises with my tongue and my lips and my mouth to try and get the front of my mouth working, because that wouldn't work. One of the exercises I used to love was using a ping pong ball. If my speech and language therapy assistant would come, I couldn't do it on my own. She would set me up by a table with a straw in my mouth. She'd put it in my mouth, and she'd make me try and blow the ping pong ball, I don't know, 10 centimetres or something. Now, I couldn't even blow it 2 centimetres, 1 centimetre. It was a fail. Eventually, I used to be driven around the ward with this straw out, and all I'd do is try and lip seal around the straw so that when she came back. But at the end of it, as I was practising with the straw of the lip seal, I was able to blow it off the table a long way. The other thing I used to do, which used to make her laugh, because we spend most of her sessions laughing actually. The other thing I used to do, I used to get so fed up with the secretions, because I used to dribble like Turner and Hooch the dog, and it was really unfeminine. And you know, Mark would constantly be wiping my face, or a nurse, or they'd just not do it for a while and just be dripping. It would be horrible. And they used to put hyacinth patches down my ears, and they gave me Botox for my saliva, not for anything else. And but I got so fed up of it, I came up with this novel idea that I should just be pushed around the ward with a big packet of tissue stuffed in my gob. To which one point, you'll know this, the speech and language therapist told me off, because they said that how would I ever practice my swallow if it's just mopping it up all the time. So, but it was just nice to have a period where I wasn't slivering and slobbering everywhere. It was just lovely. Brings me on to something else actually. I don't think you'll ever realise this. When you've done nothing for months, absolutely nothing yourself, and the very kind nurse on Osborne, Kerry her name was, she was a student nurse, she was brilliant. She used to come in and try and put my legs in a what's the position where they God, I've forgotten the name of it. A bridge position. She'd always try and do it, and she'd try and see if I could lift my pelvis off the bed just a centimetre or so. And we should do it all the time. She'd say, come on, you can do it, you can do it. After weeks, I managed to lift it off there, and I can't tell you how amazing that felt, to be in control of my own body and my own movement. So much so that I started doing, they weren't sit-ups by any stretch of imagination, but they felt like sit-ups to me. And I'm doing all this, and one day she comes and she goes, I've heard all about what you're doing, I'm not impressed. She came in with a female shot putted poster. She said, you're doing that movement using your neck, and if you carry on doing that, you're going to look like her. And I'm going to put that picture on the other wall to remind you. So, true to style, I ignored her and carried on anyway, because the feeling of being in control was enormous. You can't underestimate that. The functional electric stimulation was I was very much a guinea pig. The OTs weren't qualified to use that, but I absolutely swear by it, and I think it helped me an awful lot bring this side back to life. I had neurophysio with Emma and a colleague every single day for 5 days. I did a lot of willing on my own. They used to say do 3 sets of 10, whatever exercise, whether it's swallow, whether it's... And now I do 40. I just do it all day, every day, because I have nothing else to do apart from watch Jeremy Kyle. So, you know, I just do it, and it was never going to harm me, and I don't understand why they said don't do it 3 times. I think the psychology is, if we say just 3 times, we're more likely to do it. If we say 20 times, you'll probably do none. Anyway. And the other thing I would say is, it used to scare the hell out of me was all the assessments you have, whether it's to review, whether it's to move from ICU to Osborne, whether it's from Osborne to go home, and the pressure to perform like a performing monkey was enormous. you see a doctor in a white coat and you know that this is a big assessment, and if you do this right, you're going to either eat, or you're going to either drink, or you're going to either leave, or you're going to either start flip-flowing, or the trachea's going to come out. The pressure on the patient in those clinical settings is enormous. And there's no wonder parents, loved ones will say that people, their loved one, not out of desperation all the time, have made movements or they've done something because they've done it in a relaxed way. Under the spotlight, under the pressure, they can't perform. Just to give you an idea, I got my trainers on a day visit. I can't know that you can hear this, but why it's not loud. It's not working. It's not. Oh, is it plugged in right?
Oh, no.
Try it over here. I have used it before. Oh, it's that little bit there.
There's a jack.
Let them to play together.
This video is very special to me because the first time I took the flip camera into hospital, and I thought I was talking really well, and I think it will give you some idea how important my trainers were. I'll tell you this beforehand. Emma Dove on the Grid 2 visit home brought me home, and I needed some new footwear for the hospital that was suitable for all the heavy duty neuro I was doing, and they'd been washed, they'd been put through the washer from all my fell running, my trainers, and I can't tell you how pleased I was to be able to go back with some trainers on my feet. And this is my room. I have loads of flowers. I have my telly, my bed, and my ever-present laptop for that book, which gives me instructions for my friends. And my birthday. So you get the idea. I wasn't speaking anything like I was. And this video here I'm going to show you has had loads of hits on YouTube because one of my goals, and I was full of determination in hospital. One of my major goals, and the nurses laughed at me when I wrote it, was I was going to walk out of hospital. And this picture here, I'd walked the furthest by 3 times than I'd ever done before on my exit out of hospital. And this will give you an idea as to what it was like. This was on the 29th of September 2009 there.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's so oh, we're walking.
Get Totley.
Even on the last day. I think you're a bit faster. Pardon? Am I not just supposed to go backwards like this?
Bottom, head out. You're sagging. Oh, you're crying. Come on, stay. You've been desperate to leave, don't be upset, you're now. Have a
sit down for a second, sweetie, then get up again.
This is acne tears, I think.
I know, they're acne tears of joy.
Come on, we don't want to do it any longer. Get your son out.
I'm glad we did that because it really shows you how far I've come, really. Anyway, I mean, if I was to sort of analyse my post-hospital experience, I would truthfully say, with all my support I've had from my immediate family and my friends, that it's been as hard as it was in hospital, and that was damn hard. The adjusting back into life, the reintegration, the withdrawal, the depression, the post-traumatic stress. I mean, it's been horrendous. And then there's social isolation because people stop asking you to go out because you don't want to go out, you've got no confidence, self-esteem. And I'm alright in my comfort zone. I can do this because stroke is my comfort zone, because I know I help and have helped people all over the world, and I feel very confident I have something to offer. But Kate Allatt isn't personally as confident as you probably might think. So what do I have? I have inappropriate laughter. I mean, that was played out on day release when I was at my best friend's dad's funeral. And I laugh when I'm emotional. And the other thing I do is when I laughed at a funeral, which was horrendous, and I wasn't meaning to laugh at all. It was just because I was emotional that she was emotional. The way that also transcended itself was the 3 kids for the first 3 months were amazing with me. They slept with me every night, they all rotated, they couldn't believe I was back. But then they became normal kids again, and they reverted back into, well, they were becoming adolescent children. And, you know, I had to I used to laugh when I was angry. You know, they'd done something wrong, and I'd laugh, and of course then they'd laugh at me, and the whole thing would just get worse. And I work very closely with the Stroke Association. I don't get paid for any of this, I just do it because it's passion and I love it. In 2 years, it's 3 years since my stroke in 2 weeks' time. I've written the first book. I'm going to fly now. I'm finishing this year in November my 3rd book, which is going to be an inspirational quote book. I'm collaborating with somebody else to do a self-help stroke guide book to help stroke survivors all over the world, and it'll have lots of stroke survivor stories from all over the world and tips and advice as to what they've done. I actually did my beloved fell running, albeit it wasn't very long, and that you probably recognise that's the bottom of Blackenmore. And I've just heard that I might be able to get a chance to be classified for Rio to be a Paralympian cyclist. Because what I didn't tell you was I can run, I can get forward momentum, but I always used to run like I've got chicken legs, and I've got them worse now. So I'm trying to avoid having hip replacement, knee replacement. So I've taken up road cycling, do 35 miles in the Peak District, get in there, up those big hills. So I'm going to try and apply to be classified to be a Paralympian cyclist. Well, you only die once, don't you? So why not? So, to be continued, we'll see what happens. But this is one record that inspired me.
Last year, and it really made me think, by the grace of God, what attitude there are to any one of us. And in your book you open up about first being admitted casualty, then coming out again, then going back in and seeing the fear on the doctor's face when you realised you'd been readmitted. Have you changed procedures now on entry? Because you said it was to do with blood pressure and that you actually...
Well, I've been back 13 times since I left hospital on 29th of September with swallow issues and fainting episodes, and because what I didn't show was a slide to show that the infarction in my brain is massive actually, and it's still there. They can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing. But my understanding is that they changed the admission procedures for suspected stroke to go straight to the Hampshire, and I'm now fighting for... I had very low blood pressure because I ran a lot and I was uber fit. Argue too fit, I don't know, but I was very fit. And so when my blood pressure was taken in the Northern General, it was within normal ranges. But for me, it was bloody high, but it was missed. So I'd like to think they've picked up on that, the tolerances for my age and weight, it was actually wrong, but they didn't. I believe they've changed procedures with the Hampshire and the stroke unit. I know for me personally, they treat me with kid gloves there, so if I go in, they just automatically offer me a CT scan. But I do know, in all fairness, that a lot of people are misdiagnosed, especially with brainstem strokes. I had slurring. I had high blood pressure for me. I was very young, I was very fit. There should have been alarm bells. There wasn't. And I know people that are accused of being drunk and on drugs and vomiting, and they're just abandoned on trolleys. I know Mia Austin was diagnosed with CJD, and it was a brainstem. So I'm not sure how much processes have improved to identify what are difficult to spot brainstem strokes, but they have a Rosier procedure, which I insisted only last week when I was back there for something else that they applied to me, and he was quite surprised I knew what a Rosier procedure was. But I don't know as long as short of it all. I would hope so. I get so many emails from nurses, especially ICU nurses all over the world, saying this has really helped me when I deal with a patient like you. This has really helped me because it's dead practical. But I'm hoping to get on the national LAID member where I can actually influence policy. Like the nominated patient advocate, like the TV, like the turning more regularly. Like the fact someone like me needs more intensive nursing than somebody who can eat and drink and go to the loo for themselves. Therefore, give them more time. I mean, it's not fair to say I've got 20 patients on a ward, you all have 20 bits of my time. That person, because of the nature of their disability, should get a lot more time.
Do you not have one-to-one in HDU then?
In ICU do, but not in
Not
Osborne.
in HDU, you don't have one-to-one, no. Because you were in HDU first, weren't you, in Osborne?
Oh, on HDU, yeah.
Yeah.
The ICU, HD, I get confused with ITU, ICU, HDU. But yes, and in that area, in the severely ill area, when death rates are very high, and I saw a few people cark it, which wasn't very nice. It was one-to-one, but in Osborne it wasn't. And at one point I was in Osborne and I wasn't able to activate. For a long time I wasn't able to activate a button, and they tried putting a head thing on because I got a bit of movement that way eventually, but that used to slip down, so I never used to be able to activate the button. So it used to cause me more stress than not, because at least if I didn't have a headrest on, then a nurse would potentially come and check me more. If they didn't hear from me, they just assumed it was all right with the headrest on.
Did you ever not know your family, from what you can remember in the early days?
Did I what, sorry?
Not know your family, like who they were?
No. I think the first week I was fairly groggy after coming out of a coma, and I'll be fair and honest about that. But really, from the minute they were there, and I'll be fair to Mark, I was really upset because he used to come in a tie, and I think, what do I have to do for you to get a day off work? Or I'd think to myself, where are my kids? But I always knew it was them. I knew my friends. I cried, silent tears.
Clearly your recovery is remarkable, but is it your belief that anyone with lockdown syndrome can recover now?
I think what I've come to realise is there's a graph of locked in. Now some people get locked in for 2 days and they actually end up having more disability than me now. Some people are locked in for years. Christine Waddell, Tony Robinson. What there is a graph. There's a graph of people after a period of time will end up doing more or less than another. And on the graph, I suppose I'm at the far end in terms of I've come out of it really, really well. And it was very severe. It wasn't a 2-day lock-in. I was really severely locked in. And that's why they were surprised at my review. But there are people like Tony Nicholson who, you know, everyone knows about, who are at the other end of the graph. So the thing we're locked in is there's so many different permutations, but within their disability, I believe there's progress, improvement to be made for everybody. Now, I don't talk about recovery because most people think recovery means full recovery, and they do that in the brain, and they think, you know, I'll be just like I was before. No, I'm not like I was before. Yet to you, I probably look fine, but I'm not. I don't run, for example, which I loved. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big deal compared to someone like Tony. But within his world, or Mia Austin, who I mentioned, who for 2.5 years didn't eat anything, started to eat pasta. She's now one of my advisors on my thing, which is really good. She gives us such a lot of insight. So I think within each one, each individual, in the same way there's individuals who want to live with it and very happy like Christine, and there's people that are like Tony. Everyone's individual, they have to have their choice. And you know, I also think if there's a will to try and improve and not accept the status quo, I think improvement can be made.
Were there times during that sort of first 8 weeks when you had no movement at all, that if somebody had come along to you and said, you know, we can give you a very nice injection of morphine and everything will go and you will just be released from all of this, was there a bit of you at times when you would have blinked twice rather than once?
I'd have said, give it me. Up until that review, I wanted out. I didn't want to be didn't want to be an observer in life. I was a full-on participator. You know, that was just horrendous. You know, take me out of my misery. This I cannot cope with. Mark never asked me. You know, it's interesting to say that because only last week I got an email from South Africa from a bloke who had the same thing as me, torn to sclerosis. We don't know how far they recover. It's 2 weeks after it, very early days, and his nurse sent me an email saying that I've learnt a lot from your approach, and I'm sorry I couldn't help such and such a person. After 2 weeks, he'd managed to blink. I wasn't able to blink that clearly after 2 weeks. That he wanted to end his life because he couldn't tolerate that. That within another 2 weeks, he'd basically got the lawyers in, and he was killed. He was actually withdrawn his feed, and he died a very, very painful death without food. But he starved himself because he didn't want to carry on. He already knew that 2 weeks. Now I get emails of distressed parents ringing me saying the doctors are saying this after a week, after 2 weeks. I kid you not. God knows what they would have said to Mark, and I know what they said to him. But the point is, he didn't choose to believe it. But you know, the doctors are saying, you know, get over it. This is how it's going to be now. You know, you've got to adjust your life, fit this in, and this is what they're going to be like now. And 2 weeks, you know, 2 weeks, I wasn't even blinking coherently. It's far too soon, and these people are making the most unbelievable. Vicky Pollard, husband Richard, you know, PC Ford, both in Leeds, and they've made most unbelievable progress. Richard's gone home. It's like people get drawn into this idea that you're going to end up like Terry Nicholson. You might, but at 2 weeks, nobody knows.
Bed shortage, that's what it is.
Of course it's cost. Because, you know, my bed costs £7,000 a week in Osborne, and that was not in ICU, which I think is more like £12,000.
Have you any idea what brought it on?
I have my own theory. Mark will disagree. He thinks it was sledging, because I was sledging. But I'm convinced I was a very lazy runner in terms of the fluid I used to take on. And I'm convinced there's research to be done that would say that if you're desperate, bearing in mind I was running 70 miles a week at this point, and I wasn't hydrated properly. I only just started eating gels. I couldn't run on food. I have a theory that my blood became too thick, it clotted, it split the artery and I had a stroke. And that's my theory. But no one's done any research.
Well, this is the thing, when people on the EPO, they used to have to get up in the middle of the night and exercise because the bug gets so thick. They used to have little alarm clocks. I mean, and I don't want to knock Lance Armstrong because he's a fantastic athlete, but his memory...
Oh, please do. I elevated to great heights in here, which I regret doing now.
Well, I regret it. I mean, I think as a guy who was bullied, and I you know, given for the action he's taken against other people, he's still a great athlete. But it was interesting because reading his book about the people on the EPO, the fact they used to have to get up in the middle of the night to stop their blood clotting.
I'm convinced by it.
Yeah. We should all drink more.
Exactly. A lot more water, not carbs.
Run less.
Run less, drink more.
Anyway, I don't know if anybody else wants to, but I enjoyed doing it tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Go on Amazon if people haven't got any money, but I'd be very happy to.
Yeah, Kate's
do
just
an
said
Amazon.
if you'd like to make any donation.